Yeah, I just got through watching a video by The Ticket. This a YouTuber. He creates content. His name is The Ticket. I'm actually subscribed to his channel. I do like his content. Um, he he pretty much keeps me up to date with current events. I don't really watch. I'm not too big into entertainment news. However, I do like his delivery. So Ticket TV is a person that I follow, and I have nothing personally against him. Uh, I don't always agree with him. Just because I'm subscribed to a particular person doesn't necessarily mean that I'm gonna agree with everything that you say or agree with everything that you think. It just means that I like your content. And within a 15 to 20 minute or even 30-minute message, there are gonna be things that are said every now and then that I'm not gonna agree with. I'm not gonna just agree with everything a person says from beginning to end. Because just because I follow you doesn't mean that I'm substitute my brain for your brain. In other words, I follow you doesn't mean I take my brain out and put your brain in my head and all of a sudden I'm just connected to you and I become a person that's easily influenced by what you say, even though inherently and deep down, even on a subconscious state, that I disagree with you. So I don't follow people like that. But the reason why I'm talking about Ticket TV, you guys should subscribe to his channel. I like him. I like him. I follow him. But one thing I do not agree with was his latest video that he put out on about Prime, and he's been doing this frequently about Prime, man. He and when it is about Prime, he does come on and he tends to put out the information that he does put out. He puts it out where he's going at Jason Whitlock as well. Usually his thumbnail would have some photo or some type of depiction of Jason Whitlock, and then a split screen you'll have Coach Prime on there as well. And he usually will have Whitlock in a Ball State jersey, in a Ball State uniform, playing actually in the middle of a game. And on the other side, he'll have Coach Prime holding up the Super Bowl trophy in his Dallas Cowboy apparel, Dallas Cowboy uniform. And other times he'll have Jason Whitlock in some kind of nightclub, speaking about Jason Whitlock's hypocrisy. And the reason why I'm making this video is because I think that it's ironic that the approach that Ticket TV takes in attacking Jason Whitlock, and I'm no defender of Jason Whitlock at all. It just recently, as of late, I'm starting to see what he was talking about with Coach Prime. And we have to be able as people to evolve and be able to change our minds. It doesn't mean that you're a hater. Usually when a person says something, the first thing that's triggered is an emotional impulse. Like we're triggered emotionally, and the impulse affects us and it negates the ability to think rationally. So we start thinking with our emotion, frontal lobe, amygdala. We start responding emotionally. And the quick verbiage that's hurled out is hater. Or if you're a black person and you're critiquing another black man, just like me, I'm a black person critiquing Coach Prime, aka Deion Sanders. Oh, I can't believe you're black and it's always our own people. What the hell does that mean? As a matter of fact, it being our own people gives me the right to be more critical. Everyone who has kids, you're more critical of your own kids than you are other kids because they're your own kids. When it's our own, we have the right to be more critical. We have the right to be more critical. So the fact that it's not that is black people pulling black people down, is that black people thinking black people, we have standards. And we don't want anybody out there that's going to make all of us look bad. Because you know how it works, right? They take the 1% of us that are operating less than pristine or less than ideal, and they use that as the poster to represent the entire race or the entire black community. And that's disingenuous. That's not accurate. So a lot of the times when we have one of our own that's doing well or that's put out there in the limelight, we tend to be very critical because we want them to walk in a certain path that makes all of us look good. Okay? But maybe that's me. I'm speaking for myself, but that's the way I take it. I don't take it as black people pulling black people down. In terms of Ticket TV, he likes to go back in the past. And I would like to tell Ticket TV that we're not talking about the past. We're not. We understand what the things that Deion Sanders has accomplished. We understand that. That's long gone. That's then. We're talking about now. And I think the irony in his thumbnail is very telling. That he uses a photo of Jason Whitlock in a Jason Ball uniform, in a Ball State uniform, and he has a picture with Deion Sanders holding up the Super Bowl trophy when he played for Dallas Cowboys. Now, I think that that's very telling, and I'm going to tell you why. Because you're using that past event to reflect upon something that's current, and I think that's incongruous. That's not congruent. It's not. It doesn't connect. I'm going to tell you why. It should be flipped. What you're trying to do with the thumbnail is shame Jason Whitlock for his failures as a player and heighten Coach Prime's current state based upon his past. But we all know we cannot rest on our laurels. Whatever you've done in the past, it doesn't matter what you've done in the past. Now, it may give you certain credentials, and it comes with a level of cachet that you bring with you whenever you walk into certain corridors or when you enter a room. People recognize you for who you are. But when you step into a place, you're now going to be critiqued on what you're doing currently. So I find that thumbnail very ironic. It should be flipped. Rather than you using the past accomplishments and past failures of two different men to critique the present, you should just delete that thumbnail and talk about the present. Ticket. Presently and currently stating, in terms of what's going on now, I would say Whitlock is the one holding up the Super Bowl trophy. Metaphorically speaking, not literally, because he never played in the NFL. Jason Whitlock is the one that's holding the Super Bowl trophy. And right now, Prime as a coach is wearing the Ball State uniform. I'm going to tell you guys what I mean by that. Ticket is trying to shame Jason Whitlock's past by using that as a way to shame his current views. And then he's trying to heighten Prime's current situation by going back to what things that Coach Prime has accomplished in the past. You can't do that. Right now, Coach Prime's first year, I wouldn't call it a downright failure. I would just say it's disappointing. It's disappointing because he had way too much talent in the Pac-12 to lose 7 out of 8 games. The last 7 out of 8 games to teams that were beatable. He actually gave a game away, the game against Stanford. They had that in the bag, and he wanted to make sure his son threw for 700 yards that game. There's no reason why your son should have kept on passing the damn ball after halftime. Y'all should have just ran heavy, eat the clock up. But what do I know? I've never coached, because according to Ticket TV, you have to have accomplished something to critique Coach Prime. You have to have a certain level of money in your bank account. And these are the things he said on the video I watched. I'm not making this up. These are the things he said. And that's what I mean, that I don't agree with everything that he says, but I do follow him. I don't unsubscribe from people because they say something that I don't agree with. I continue to listen because I think that the only way we can grow and evolve mentally is to always listen to views that are contentious and views that are contrary to what we think. And it forces us to think harder, to counter that or to rebut what we hear. And if we can't rebut it, then it causes us to actually have a reflective moment to kind of think and say, you know what, maybe that person is kind of right. And it takes a degree of true humility to actually agree to that. If you know me, I do not like Jason. Well, let me not say that. I do not like the views of Jason Whitlock. I'm not going to say I don't like anybody because I don't know Jason Whitlock personally. I don't follow many of his. Actually, I don't even follow him. I think I'm still subscribed to his channel, but a lot of the times I just click over his stuff. I have a lot of things that I'm subscribed to, but I don't listen to every channel. I don't even have time in the day to do that. I have 3 kids, a wife, and a job, and there's no way in hell that I could keep up with all those channels. But there are certain topics that he does talk about that I do tune in. When I say he, I'm talking about Jason Whitlock. There are certain topics that he discusses that I tune in to see what he has to say. And usually on the comment page, I'm ripping him. I'm going against it. And even when he was talking about Prime initially, I'm like, what's this guy's angle? What's his motive? He keeps talking about Prime's motive. What's your motive? You sound like a hater. And he's not a hater. He's just a man that's willing to. He's courageous enough to speak and go against the grain and go against the avalanche of hype and the avalanche of emotional allure that's painted that's put towards Coach Prime. And it's tough because he did this early. I'm doing it later. He did it early when it was like unpopular. So I give him credit for that. So I think that the Ticket TV approach, rather than you talking about the things that they have accomplished in the past, just talk about what they're doing now currently. I think, relatively speaking, I think that Jason Whitlock is doing well for himself. He has a show. He has a called Fearless. I think he's doing great. Everybody wants bigger numbers, but is he suffering? Is he struggling for content? No, he's doing well. He's doing okay. We all can do better. You know, even rich people want more money. So I mean, at what level do you just say I'm content? I think he's fine, relatively speaking, and I think you're fine too. Ticket TV, you have a good following, and your page is great. You put out good content. But with that said, we can't use past accomplishments as a barometer or as a launching pad to filter out unadulterated critique. When I say unadulterated, I mean you can't mix it. All right, you cannot mix it. If it, because what you're doing, you're committing adultery in terms of when you're marrying logistics, or when you're marrying logic, and when you're marrying empirical data, things that you actually seeing, like common sense and what you see has to intertwine. But when you intercede with the mistress of nostalgia or the mistress of past accomplishments, then that clouds your judgment. And I think Ticket TV, if you play back your video on the one you just did 3 hours ago, it was called "It's Over for Deion Sanders in Colorado after losing all the rest," and I think you ended it with a question mark when you said that, because you're not saying it's over. You're saying, is it over? You're basically asking a question. And if you go back and listen to your own take, it's just a bunch of, you're just ranting. Like you're not really picking out the points that Whitlock is saying about Prime, and not saying debating it, but specifically, what specifically is he saying that you don't agree with, rather than just saying, oh, he's a hater, he's fat, he hasn't accomplished anything, so he couldn't do it like Deion, so he went to be a journalist so he can talk bad about people. That's not, see, when you approach topics like that, Ticket, no one will take you seriously. You really have to do a better job of actually picking out the points that he says and then refute it. And even though people may not agree, but people will actually respect your views. And what you're doing is ranting. You're just, oh, he hasn't done this, he hasn't done that, he hasn't done this. We don't care about. That's the past. We're talking about now. Right now, Jason Whitlock is holding up the Super Bowl trophy, metaphorically speaking, because everything he said in the beginning is coming to fruition. And it's not because he says that it's going to be a failure because they went 4-8 this season. It's the way they went. It's the way they are 4-8. You know, you played sports before. Many of you guys have played sports. And the Ticket TV, he's played basketball before. He knows about sports. There's a certain way you win and a certain way you lose. There's certain losses that are just deeper than just a loss. It's the way you lose sometimes that hurts even more. You can lose a game that you play hard in. Sometimes a team just has your number that night. But it's the way you lose, and it's the way you respond after the losses that people are looking at. Because you can't go on a rant, Coach Prime, about, do you believe? Do you believe? Yeah? Oh, we believe. I got receipts. You can't be loud and boisterous when things are going well. Then when things are not going so well, then all of a sudden it's like, uh-oh, what do I do now? And I think that's what happened. That's why you have to win with humility, and you have to lose with humility. Losing in and of itself inevitably is a humbling elixir. It humbles you if you allow it to. And I don't think Prime allowed it to happen because it was always somebody else's fault. It was always the D line, is the offensive line fault. It's people not studying tape. It's people not doing this. No, that's not it. Those kids work hard. It's your coaching philosophy, and your teams, your players are starting to see it, and they're jumping ship. They're not jumping ship because you demand a lot out of them. They're jumping ship because you don't make any sense. You want players to work hard. Even your response to Cavassier Smoke saying that the team is selfish. You just said, I love him. You love him. He works hard. You didn't play him. You didn't even allow him to play. He didn't get on the field because you didn't use your running backs. So again, Ticket TV, I would say, if you're going to come at Jason Whitlock, and I'm not supporting Jason Whitlock in terms of like defending him. I want you to do, we all need to be better at what we do, right? We all need to be better. We all need to improve. And I think that it'd be better if you actually had, or if you had a title. And I know certain titles that you have on your thumbnail are used for clicking. Because initially, if you read the title of your last video, it just says it's over for Dion. So people are going to be thinking, what? Ticket TV normally supports Coach Prime. What does he mean it's over? But he has a question mark at the end. Ticket has a question mark at the end. So it's a way to draw people in. But even when you've drawn people in, which is a smart move, keep them there with content, not ranting, not emotional. Oh, this. Even my breakdown, when I talked about the meltdown at Stanford, how that was a blessing, I wasn't ranting. I was giving out my emotions. I was really talking about how that loss, that was a pivotal point in the season. I believe that was a blessing. You know how I know it was a blessing? Because AJ Hill had committed. He committed in October, and around that time, I think is when actually he was at the game when Stanford, when USC, when Colorado blew that lead and gave up that game to Stanford. AJ Hill Jr. was actually sitting in the stands, and he made a verbal commitment. He even went as far as telling Coach Prime that I'm going to help bring offensive linemen here. I was ecstatic about that. I was happy about that. If I was a hater of Prime, I would be mad about that. I would be like, oh, why does he want to help Coach Prime? I want Coach Prime to lose. I don't want Coach Prime to lose. I want him to win. I just want him to win. So, and that's gone. So it's just the way you handle defeat and the way you handle adversity that that's a true test of what a man is made of. Not what you say behind the podium. It's how you handle your team, how you handle your men. When things get rough, how do you handle yourself? And when I see a resistance to change a philosophy, then that lets me know that you have a bullheaded man at coach that has his own agenda. And that's what people are starting to see, Ticket. So you can't continue to use past events of a man's life or his failures as a way to mar or marginalize his current takes on Coach Prime. I think that the critiques are warranted. I think that the critiques are justified. I don't think that he's personally attacking Prime as a person. He's attacking his philosophy. He's attacking his practices, and he's attacking the people that are allowing this to happen in terms of he talks about the idol worship of Prime, because Whitlock always has to use religious terminology to fuel his content. So he likes to use the term, idol worship of Coach Prime. I don't believe people are worshiping him. I just think people are drawn to him. And there's nothing wrong with being drawn to people. But if you're going to be drawn to people, be drawn to them with an objective lens. Because everybody is human and people have their flaws, and people are all susceptible to the lower vibrational outputs that puts us all in this third dimensional reality that we live in. Low vibrational outputs like ego, pride, stubbornness, jealousy. All those things are low vibrational outputs. And I think that to be a well-rounded person, you have to be able to listen to your critics. Now, when they get to a point where it gets personal and they start like personally attacking you as a person, like insults, cursing you out, then I think that's where the line has to be drawn. But if someone's critiquing your style in terms of your approach and your schemes and the way you lead your team, I think it's justified. I mean, you can't get all the praise and get upset when you get the critique. It comes with the territory. It's not mutually exclusive. They're mutually inclusive. They're together. You can't have one without the other. It's a marriage made in social media heaven. You can't say, oh, look at me now. Do you believe? I told you I come to win. I come to dominate. That's great. But when you lose, that same hype that you had on the opposite of the end of the spectrum, the lowness, the you could call it negative energy, or the counter energy to the energy that you were receiving initially because of the wins, this is going to come just as heavy as the hype came when you were 3-0, Coach Prime. So Ticket, those thumbnails you're using are getting old. Like, don't do that anymore. I would say, this is just my suggestion. And of course, anybody, will say, well, who are you? You're just a nobody on YouTube. He has more clicks and he has more subscribers than you. I don't care if Ticket has 5 billion subscribers. I don't think anyone is above being given critical or constructive criticism. I believe he needs to stop doing that. I think the best thing he can do is, number one, stop using those old pictures. Because what you're doing, Ticket, you're trying to appeal to people's emotions. And people can't think clearly when they're emotionally driven, because you're using a failure picture to illustrate your point. But then you're not making any points about the points that Whitlock made. So you're just using emotional appeal. That's what advertising does. They show you emotion. They show you things on the screen. Things are moving very fast. They show a person happy. This can work for you. Try this today, and you could be this. And they get you to buy the product. And I think you're selling a product, Ticket. But people who think could see behind that. Take the pictures off. And what would be better for you to do would just be pick something that he says. There may be certain things that Jason Whitlock says that you agree with, and because you are an anti-Jason Whitlock person, you have to stay in character and go against everything he does. I understand it. You're Ticket TV. You have a social media. You have to stay in character. What I would encourage you to do is take something that he says and then use that as your title. And then you can speak about the topic of what he says. Put a different thumbnail on there, because I think that when you do that, when you when you continue to show Coach Prime's past achievements, you're actually doing Coach Prime a disservice. You say, how? I'm going to tell you why. Because you're basically saying, we don't need to talk about his current situation. Let's just talk about how great he was in the past. And that hopefully that greatness that he had in the past as a player will translate to greatness here in Colorado. But that's not how life works. And you know that. Player and coach doesn't mean most great. I've said this before, and I hate repeating myself, but we all know this, that most great players are not great coaches. They don't become great coaches. You can become a great recruit. You can be a great recruiter and recruit the hell out of people because of your magneticism. But what happens when people start to see your coaching philosophy and your coaching deficiencies become magnified and you become exposed for the lack of a coach that you are, then the double-edged sword comes out and starts to work against you. So your initial attraction is great. Just like a girl who's attractive or a man who's attractive initially, but if there's no substance behind the attraction, that attraction falls quickly, because you have to it takes more than just the outer veneer or the outer look to keep a person. It's what's within. It's what's in the inside. And there are plenty of things that Coach Prime has done, and there are plenty of things that the way he carries himself, the way he coaches his team, that shows that the man is about money. And I read a comment on Ticket TV's channel. Actually, the comment was about this recent video that he put out about it being over for Coach Prime after all these losses, after him losing 7 out of the 8 games. And someone put on there that this year was a success for Coach Prime, and they started to put down all the increase in revenue in certain areas. They talked about the increase in merch, the increase in student attendance, the increase in attendance, the increase in the football attendance in terms of the audience, and that's great. That's good that's happened. But how is that success in terms of what happened on the football field? You see, Coach Prime wasn't brought there to increase school attendance. He wasn't brought there to increase revenue in the merchandise store for Colorado. That's not what he was brought there for. But if you are a personality and you are a character and you are an entertainer and you come to a program, then yeah, all those things become important, and they become just as important as the football. And you can't have that. You can't have undivided attention. You have to have your attention has to be undivided toward football. You can't come there saying, "Oh, I raised this merchandise. I got these people. I got more money here. I got more money here." But what about the football team? See? So I believe that all the hype that initially came, it did increase all those things. And those things are factual. If you look up the data on those things, yeah. School attendance increased. Merch store was making more money. Ticket sales were out the roof. Prime was a cash cow. It's not going to be the same way next year. I'm not saying it's not going to be good. It won't be as high as it was this year. I think the hype train is actually slowed down and it stopped, because now we're starting to actually think logically now to understand that, okay, this man may be in over his head, not because he can't coach, because he has other agendas, and it shows. If he's not with his son, we don't even know what kind of coach he is without his son. He's always coached his son. So, and I don't think that's necessarily a good thing, because if you've been coaching him since he was in playing Little League football, then there's a strong emotional connection there. You would do anything. You would go as far as to go against any rational impulse within the fibers of your DNA. You will go against anything that tells you that what you're doing is wrong, to make sure that your son is put in a position to excel over and beyond whatever the team success means to you. So success to Dion is selling out the crowd. Like he said that. He said the success to him was a success this year because they sold out the stadium. That's how we were rating success. When you first got there, Prime, you weren't talking about selling out stadiums. You came to win and dominate. And what you wanted was your son. And I actually felt that. When he said, I'm bringing my Louis luggage, I didn't feel like he meant like a bunch of players. I always felt like he meant, I'm bringing my son here. Like my son's going to be the savior for Colorado. And he started off the year that way. Shedeur, passing. And no matter what, he kept going, putting the ball in his son's hands. Yeah, I got to show you. I show my son. And even, I remember one press conference, he talked about, I don't know, and this is when the Heisman talk should have been like over for Shedeur. There was no way he wouldn't even be considered at this point. Because at this point of the season, I think that his numbers weren't as good. And if you're going to be a Heisman Trophy candidate, your team has to have a degree of success. And Colorado was not having that at that time. And Coach Prime said this. He said, "Well, I don't know any Heisman Trophy candidate or quarterback that's getting hit as much as Shedeur and still producing." Like, what? Who gives a damn about Heisman candidate? How about you come to a program that was 1-11 and you try to win some games by any means necessary, not trying to win a Heisman for your son by any means necessary. You see, those two approaches are in stark contrast to one another. Trying to win by any means necessary for your team is different than trying to win the Heisman for your son by any means necessary, because the two philosophies come with two different approaches, and both could come with major ramifications. It just happens to be the approach that Coach Prime took came at a detriment for the team, came at the team's expense. So Ticket, just do me a favor, just critique the points of Whitlock. I think you'll do better if you do that. And you do that sometimes. I've heard you do it sometimes. Like you'll take something that he says and then you'll rip him apart. Like that you're good at. You're good at. Look, you said, what does he say? Ticket. He says, cook him hard. Cook him three the hard way or something like that. He says something like that. He'll say, I'm gonna cook them hard or whatever he says. And he really goes in on people when he can take something that you say and just rip you apart with something that you said. And I think he should stick to that. But this last video that you made, it seems like you're reaching, Ticket, because I think that you're starting to see that what Whitlock was saying is true, but you don't want to succumb to that, right? You don't want to just, you have an audience and you not built, I shouldn't say that, but during this Coach Prime era, you've been a staunch supporter of Coach Prime no matter what. You can still support Coach Prime and still disagree with certain things that you see. But I'm not trying to tell you how to think. But what I am saying is that this last video you made was more just emotional. There was no content behind it. You gave a lot of narratives in terms of examples of a person going to a job and how can you critique a person if you don't know how to do the job. Like, we get it. But Whitlock did play football. I mean, he didn't play in the professional level, yet he hadn't coached. I hadn't done any of that. It doesn't stop me from critiquing. We all do it. Just like we watch a sport. If I'm watching a baseball game, I've never played baseball in my life. When Houston Astros playing, especially in the playoffs. And I'm watching the Astros, and I'm watching the postseason, and I'm critiquing certain moves that they make. It doesn't mean that, oh, how can you speak against this? You've never played. We can't do that. We can't do that. And that's like someone telling you that, how can you put out content? You didn't go to journalism school, so how can you put out content? No, you can do whatever the hell you want, Ticket, because you have a microphone, you have a camera, you have an opinion, and you should voice your opinion. And I think everyone should have the right to voice their opinion about Coach Prime. I just think it's if they feel passionate about it, they should speak about it. I don't think that you need to be a Super Bowl Hall of Fame coach or a Hall of Fame player. Come on. If that's the case, then none of us would be talking. But yeah, I just think that thumbnail is telling. But right now, Whitlock is holding up the Super Bowl trophy, and I believe that Coach Prime right now, in terms of the players that are decommitting, and people starting to see him for what he is, that it's not all football, and it's heartbreaking. It's just taking certain people longer to see it. Jason Whitlock saw it day one. Before Coach Prime came, he saw it. I'm like, what? That's what shocked me with Whitlock. I'm like, dude, the dude just barely got there. And anything that Coach Prime would do, he would just critique it. He would critique it. I'm like, goodness, chill out. But sometimes we have to let the seed grow. We have to let something that's planted, we have to give it time to grow. And as the season progresses, we start to see things for what they are. And it's exactly what he said. So that past thumbnail should be reversed. You should put Coach Prime in the Ball State uniform and put Jason Whitlock, Photoshop it and put Jason Whitlock on the side of Dion holding up the Super Bowl trophy. In terms of where they stand currently today at the end of the season, it was a disappointment. And you know it, Ticket. And we'll see what happens next year, because I'm telling you now, just because he gets bigger offensive linemen that are better and he gets better D linemen, that's why they say it takes 3 to 4 years to rebuild. But this year is going to be a wash. Next year is really going to be like his first year. First year he came with hype. Coach Prime came with hype. He brought his Louis luggage. Many players, as I've said before, that transferred from the portal that came to Colorado this year are going to be gone. They're going to leave. Many of the recruits that people thought Colorado were going to have, they've already started to decommit. So when he comes next year, when Coach Prime comes next year, it's going to be his true first year. Because the first year he came with a name. That's what got me so upset, because the team he actually had this year was good enough. He doesn't need any more wide receiver help. He needs some better defensive backs. He needs some better linebackers. He does need some better D linemen and better offensive linemen. In terms of the offensive weapons, he doesn't need any more of that. Dylan Edwards should be a slot receiver, in my opinion. He should not be running through the tackles. He's too tiny. But they have good running backs, assuming Alton McCaskill comes back, but he redshirted. I'm hearing rumors saying that he redshirted so he can have an extra year, but he'll be an idiot. He'll be an idiot to come back there, because they did not use him at all. But that's neither here nor there. I digress. So the main things that Coach Prime needs are just the monsters, or the quote-unquote dogs in the middle. He has weapons. You already have a quarterback. You know how many colleges would love to have a Shador at quarterback? You already have that. All you need is your D-line, linebackers, defensive backs, O-line. Just concentrate on that. Those other people that are decommitting, in terms of the Watkins, the receiver, that's fine. Let him go. That's fine. You don't need that. You don't need any more offensive weapons. You need a very, very good running back, strong offensive line, D-line, D-backs, defensive backs, and linebackers. Don't worry about receivers and quarterback right now. Because when Coach Prime comes next year, that's going to be his first year. And you guys think that he may have been humbled this year. You guys haven't seen anything yet. Because I think that next year is going to be harder than this year. Because teams have figured him out. People have figured him out. You know, when he made the statement, if you're going to get me now. Well, I think that if you were going to win, Coach Prime, the best year for you to win was now. And I think you knew it. That's why he came in. He came out, I want to dominate. He really thought he was going to come there and win every game. He really thought that. I mean, I kind of thought that too, with the exception of probably USC and Oregon. Well, there are probably two teams I thought, two teams are kind of tough. But their talent was good enough. If they had good coaching and actually coaches that knew what they were doing, a coach that knows what he's doing, and a team that's together to have an identity that fits the personnel, not having an identity that fits one personnel, the quarterback, but having an identity that fits your team personnel, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. That's what I'm talking about. If they had that, they would have a chance, but they didn't have that. You were going against the grain. No matter what your personnel had, you just had to throw the ball every play, Coach Prime. And this is the fate you're going to suffer. Players don't want to go there, so players are going to decommit. Your next year, you're not going to have that many transfer portals, so your Louis Vuitton luggage may look like, I don't know, a handbag up from Walmart next year. And what you thought, the talent you had this year, if you were down on it, you're really going to be down on it next year. And this is why many people are projecting that your season next year will be worse than this year. Because you had this was your best time to win. This was not the best time for coaches to beat you. This was your best time to win. Because you had the hype behind you. When you started 3-0, you had the talent. Offensive juggernaut. You just didn't use your team very well. You were just so fixated on your son winning that trophy, winning that Heisman, that you lost sight of the team. And you were so big into your other endeavors, your other things that you were doing, your branding, selling merchandise. I mean, what coach does that? I know you're doing it your prime way, and that's great, but that's not going to translate to success on the football field. It's just not. And if you're about revenue and making money, then do that. But if you're about winning football games, then do that. But you can't have both. You have to win first for that to be built. Coach Prime came with that. They're trying to use football as a way to accentuate the brand, and I think that's an irreverse. That's just a mixed match. It's convolution on steroids. It's not going to work. It's a paradox. And I think that's what happened with Coach Prime. And this is why people are starting to see it for what it is. So again, that's my spiel. I just wanted to give my two cents on that. I think Ticket TV, he can do better. Don't rant. Just pick points that he talks about and then go against it. And then be humble too. Say, you know what? I do kind of see what he's talking about in this. It doesn't mean you're not riding with Coach Prime. We have this gang mentality as black people where, it's like a mob mentality, like blood in, blood out. No, I'm not blood in, blood out on anything. I'm going to join things that make sense. And I don't care if you're black or blue or white, or if you're an alien, I don't give a damn what you are. If you're doing something that doesn't jive with me or doesn't make sense, I'm going to speak out against it. That's just how I am. I'm going to critique it. Doesn't mean I'm not riding with you. As a matter of fact, it does mean I'm riding with you. It means that I'm constructively critiquing you. If my daughter or son, let's say they get older, I get a bad report from school. Oh, that's my child. I'm not going to critique them because I want to show that I'm riding with them. No, I show that I'm riding with you when I critique you. When I critique Coach Prime, is because I am riding with him. I still am. I want them to win. When they start winning next year, or if they start winning next year, I'm not going to be upset and be like, oh my God, he's winning. No, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to critique each game as I see it. If I see changes that were made that are giving the team success, I'm going to talk about that. If I don't see any changes and they're still doing the same dumb things and they're still losing, I'm going to critique that as well. Constructive criticism comes both ways, even with good and bad. It doesn't matter. You can still critique. Criticism does not necessarily mean it's negative. It's a person just calling out things the way they think that it should go, and just analyzing the situation and just trying to put things together to make everything make sense. That's what it is. It's not some witch hunt. Like, I'm gonna critique you and let me get my blade out and try to kill you. No, it's not that serious. I don't hate Prime. I don't hate Ticket. I'm constructively criticizing Ticket because I think I can. It doesn't mean that I hate him. If I did, I would unsubscribe from his channel. And I'm not going to do that. But I feel like when he attacks Jason Whitlock, he should stop with the photos. Go against the points. And I think you'll be more respectable in terms of that if you go that lens. All right? All right, that's my spiel. Leave a comment to me what you guys think about Ticket TV's approach with Coach Prime, and And just tell me what you guys think, or how you think the season how you think the Colorado football team will play next year, and what you guys think about the recruits who are decommitting, if it's a big deal to you or if it's not. All right. Thank you guys for listening. Bye.